from the front on the left side. The prophet Ezekiel received a word from the Lord during the 70-year exile of the Jews in Babylon. The word said that the Jews would be returned to their land, their fortunes would be restored, and God would never again hide his face from them. He predicted good news in a time when world politics seemed all doom and gloom for the Jewish people. He dared to speak hope in the middle of the night. Connie was probably spared the worst of that middle of the night experience of wartime in Germany, just because she was too young to fully comprehend the horror that was going on all around her. When she and her mother and father and 2 brothers and 3 sisters came to New York in 1948, to be rejoined to her Jewish grandfather who had escaped Germany earlier, it must have seemed like another miraculous rescue straight out of the Bible. They were airlifted out of Berlin during the height of the tension during the Soviet blockage of West Berlin. They were one of the first such families to be welcomed to our country. And out of the fire, out of the destruction, like a return of the Jews from exile, they came. She knew that hope could come even in the middle of the night. Yet hope is complicated. Ezekiel's prophecy turned out to be only half true. God did restore the Jewish people to their home in Israel, but seemingly God forgot not to turn his face away from them ever again. They experienced the Roman destruction of Jerusalem and a great diaspora of the majority of Jews out of their land. And of course, they experienced the Holocaust. In Nazi Germany during her first 9 years, Connie felt tremendous fear and discrimination because part of her family was Jewish. Coming here, at first, Connie felt ashamed. And then I think that merged into a somewhat more complicated feeling, something between shame and anger at being picked upon by her new neighbors because she was a German, spoke with a German accent, and in 1948, the average New Yorker didn't like Germans. In some ways, she received a double whammy, experiencing what it was like to be an outsider in Germany, and experiencing what it was like to come to the United States and still be considered an outsider. I take pains to mention this because Connie early on developed a sympathy for those who were socially marginalized. All her life she felt empathy for the discriminated against, those who were mocked because they were different, and those who are the least powerful among us. This is who she was, and it was a part of why she developed that remarkable ability to both create and preserve deep friendships over time with her peers, while at the same time offering a kind of sheltering openness to new acquaintances. And often these would be new acquaintances who needed warm acceptance and sometimes mothering. Connie and Richard are known for their hospitality at holidays, especially to a wide variety of persons who they would take to their home and their dinner table. She practiced hospitality as a virtue, much as it was thought of and practiced in the early Christian church. Connie grew up with a knowledge of both hope and the need we all feel at times for sheltering in the warm arms of an accepting authority figure. Like the quote from the book of James, she despised judgmentalism and hated evil speech against those who could not defend themselves. She defended the outsider and said, like a biblical prophet herself, "Who are you to judge your neighbor?" She also knew more than most of us from her firsthand experience that indeed we do not know what tomorrow will bring. But Connie was shaped not just by her escape from Germany, but by the age of Aquarius in America. She became an adult in those revolutionary 1960s. She discovered art, modern art to be precise. She majored in art at Queens College. A few of her paintings still grace the walls of the home she and Richard shared for so many years on Clyde Street. I think we saw wood cuttings that Connie did last night at Fox Funeral Home. Fittingly, her first job was at the Museum of Modern Art in the library, where she went to be close to the art, but she soon discovered a more practical and enduring love for libraries. She enrolled in library school at Columbia and met Richard twice, once at the library school and once at the museum, and started her career, which eventually ended by guiding the Spence School libraries for 20 years. Along the way came marriage, the arrival of Peter and Julia, experimentation with Buddhism and feminism, meditational chanting services, a love of travel, and particularly a love affair with the city of Berlin. And always through all of these changes, it was her devotion to Richard, Peter, and Julia, to her brothers and sisters and extended family. One of the things I noted about Connie, being her pastor for 20 years, is that her interest in Christianity deepened through the years. She made a commitment to this church that this would be her community and decided to love it and contribute to it and even fight for it, warts and all. Connie was one of the leading lights pushing the Church in the Garden's fathers to broaden the definition of who could be a deacon. So that came to finally include women, and the somewhat condescending stereotype of women epitomized by its then Board of Deaconesses was abolished, I think in the late 1970s. But over time, I really feel that Connie's devotion was not just to this church as a community, but became interested in Jesus Christ as a manifestation of God. She came to appreciate, I think, probably first the rabble-rouser Jesus, the one who pushed religious authority, but she also came to see him as a link to the divine. This was most seen in her interest in prayer, which I believe grew out of her interest in chanting and meditation. She came to understand and appreciate that prayer in the Christian tradition has a richness and variety and nuance to it that is fully as well developed as that found in Eastern traditions. To hear Connie pray was a pleasure, because she did so from a very deep place in her soul, a place where she had connected to the cosmic Christ, who was both outside of us but also deeply embedded in our hearts. Connie reminded us that the way to find God isn't always to look outside. Sometimes the search should start by looking within. The letter of James says that our lives are a mist, that we appear for a little while and then vanish. He was warning people against being arrogant, but Connie lived out this sense of mortality through her work in our church with our Called to Care lay caring group. And it's interesting that she chose to be a hospice volunteer in her last years after retirement. We are all here today and gone tomorrow. Connie understood the need and the value in listening to someone remember their life and holding someone's hand as the mist deepens around them. Our reading from James ended with this admonition: anyone then who knows the right thing to do and fails to do it commits sin. I guess Connie was inevitably Christian in sentiment because she knew from her own deep experience that sin is real. It's not an illusion. Sin wounds and damages people, whether it's the failure to welcome and proffer instead haughty attitude rather than warm greeting, or a deliberate attempt to make some people second-class citizens. in their nation or their church. She knew the right thing to do, and she tried to do it. I can't help but remember how outspokenly welcoming Connie was of gay people in our congregation, and how ardent a defender of their rights she proved to be. Instinctively, she knew the right thing to do, and was not afraid to speak up and ask us all to do it. James's words strike an odd echo to Paul's famous ending of his chapter on love, 1 Corinthians 13. For now we see in a mirror dimly, but then we will see face to face. Now I know only in part, but then I will know fully, because I am now known fully by God. We don't know what our lives amount to. We don't know when they will end. We are not sure what really lasts and is truly important. Was it Connie's love for art? Her compassion as seen in her participation in activities such as Habitat for Humanity and God's Love We Deliver? Her love of her family, or her ability to make strangers feel like they are family? Was it her willingness to be a rebel, or her deep loyalty to imperfect but progressive institutions? Was it her love of the written word and its preservation in libraries? Or was it her love for the spoken word in intimate moments between cherished friends and loved ones? Thinking of Connie, it's not hard to ask, in the end, what lasts? What finally counts for the most? Faith, hope, and love abide, we're told. And Connie, and by extension, you will not be surprised to hear that the greatest of these is love. Amen.
Amen.